Hello folks, I wanted to understand concept of original sin according to the Quran. Now the concept of original sin basically comes from the Bible. So here's a overview of what is there in the Bible. Adam was warned, including Eve. Both of them were warned not to eat the forbidden fruit. They both they both ate of the tree, and then both sinned. Because of the sin, these are the consequences, which is the first immediate one was nakedness. They were sent out of the garden. In essence, it means they have to strive for food and water. Uh, and then Adam was given the curse of you have to till the ground to make your own food. And there was pain and suffering. And the final important point is through sin, death came into mankind. So these are the consequences of the original sin as per the Bible. Now, so eventually, all mankind are controlled by sin, in the sense the quality of sin which entered flesh through Adam and Eve were passed on to all their children. Eventually, all mankind were uh, infested with this problem of sin. So this is the concept of original sin as per the Bible. Now, let's try to understand what exactly the Quran says. So, if you read if you try to know about the story of Adam and Eve in Quran, the first chapter will be Surah 2, wherein we read this verse, we cautioned, O Adam, live with your wife in paradise and eat as freely as you please, but do not approach this tree. So, or else you'll be called wrongdoers. This verse basically shows that Allah wants Adam and Eve not to eat from the tree in paradise, lest they'll be counted as sinners. The only consequence that we can derive out of this particular verse is they'll be called sinners. Allah does not talk about any other consequences, nor does He talk about the consequences of being a wrongdoer. So, uh, this will be the guideline that I'll be following on. I'll try to read a verse from the Quran. I will try to understand what was the consequence based on that particular verse in the Quran. So, if all these consequences sum up along with the biblical narrative about original sin, then Quran actually talks about original sin. So I'm trying to understand if both the consequences in Quran and Bible are one and the same. So let's go to the next one, which is the place where exactly Adam and Eve sin or get deceived. Let's go to the next one. Uh, Satan deceives them. So here in this verse, there are three parts. So the first one is the deception of Satan. Second one is fall or uh, Adam and Eve eating the fruit. Because of that, they fall from the blissful state. The final one is Allah commanding Adam and Eve to descend to earth. So here, all three are connected. The first part is Satan deceiving, and then the second part is a consequence, which is Adam and Eve are there in a very heavenly, wonderful state, a blissful state. That's how Quran says they were at peace, they had no trouble, they had no suffering, and then they fell from there. And immediately it's followed by Allah telling man to go to earth. So it is very obvious that as soon as Adam and Eve sinned, the consequence was uh, fall from the blissful state, also sent to earth. So for some reason, Quran calls it paradise from where they were sent to earth, although in Bible it is recorded as Garden of Eden. Okay, no problem. Both actually mean a state, both in the sense Bible and Quran both mean almost like being in heaven. So, anyways, let's go to the next one. What I've seen is before I go to the next slide, what I've seen is when you discuss this with an Islamic brother, they generally try to say that Allah anyway had a plan to send man to earth, and so man coming to earth was not a consequence. But what you will see in the next few slides is actually not what the Islamic people say. Adam and Eve were indeed sent to earth because of their sin, even as per Quran. So let's go to the next slide. Here in this verse, which is Surah 7:22, so he made them fall through deception, and when they tasted of their tree, their private parts became apparent to them. So in this verse, we can understand that Adam and Eve, when they sinned, the immediate consequence was they became naked, or all their weaknesses, shame, their vulnerabilities were immediately exposed. Fine. So uh, let's go to the next one and try to understand further. Here in this verse, which is Surah 7, verse 27, Allah warns the children of Adam, let not Satan tempt you as he removed your parents from paradise. So the first consequence that Allah Himself says, as per the Quran, is Satan is the reason for Adam and Eve to be removed from paradise. And how exactly Satan did it? By making them fall into his deception and making them sin. So Adam and Eve were ultimately sent out of paradise just because of Adam and Eve's sin. And Quran does not deny that. So indeed, Allah has punished Adam and Eve for their sin, although uh, Islamic brothers say the contrary of it. Fine. So if you read the second part, which is stripping them of their clothing, it is about Allah cautioning the children of Adam. Now, this is what happened to your parents. So what he means to say is Allah gave a clothing to Adam and Eve, a clothing which is heavenly, which they lost, Adam and Eve, by sinning. And there is no verse in the Quran where it says Allah restored this clothing. And also there is no verse in the Quran where Allah restored Adam and Eve back to paradise. Now, both these problems, which is man suffering in earth, man being naked, and man losing paradise, is all consequences of Adam's fall from the blissful state by sinning. So this verse talks about three things that are there in paradise. One is, and these three are listed by Allah as the good things in paradise, which is no hunger, no problem of nakedness, and no thirst. But do we have all these problems in earth? Of course we have. And what does this verse show? That Adam and Eve were in a place where all these sufferings were not there, were sent to a place which is earth, where all these sufferings, which is hunger, thirst, and nakedness, will be there. So it shows that Allah is actually punishing for Adam's sin by sending him from a place which is paradise to a place of suffering, which is earth. Now, do we have all these problems? Yes, we have. And this is actually a consequence of Adam's sin upon rest of the mankind. So we come to a point where original sin is proven even through Quran, that the sin of one man is impacting the rest of the mankind. So let's understand the last point, which is death also a consequence of Adam's sin according to the Quran? So if you read this verse, Surah 7, verse 25, it says, therein ye shall live and therein shall ye die. Here Allah talks about death in this verse. So some of the interesting inference from this particular verse is if you read Surah 2, which is where Allah is talking about creating Adam and Eve, He does not talk about death. So death is spoken only after the fall. That is point number one. And the other point is death is spoken about only when they entered earth, not while they were in paradise. So as long as they were in paradise, there was no chance for them to die because Allah does not say so. The only place where they will be struggling with the problem of death is earth. Now all of us and rest of the mankind, do we have the trouble of death? Is death having a control on us? Yes, it is. So the final point that we have to understand is due to sin, death came upon Adam and Eve. And the concept is very simple because Adam and Eve got the quality of sin in them. Death also came upon them and eventually they died. And now Adam and Eve have passed this quality of sin. to the rest of mankind, to all of Adam's children, as I told at the start of the video. That is why death is ruling over us and death will ultimately conquer us. So the point that we have to understand is death is a consequence of sin, as explained in this verse, Surah 725, and hence, even according to Quran, we can understand it agrees with original sin. So, as a conclusion, I will give a clear explanation of what is original sin. Original sin is the quality of sin entering mankind because of rebelling against God and thereby able to pass that quality of sin to his progeny. In this case, Adam and Eve sinned and hence got the quality of sin, and without intention, they have passed this quality of sin to the rest of the mankind. And because of sin, death also rules on them. And so all of us have uh, fallen into the trap of original sin. Now, the one thing that I can see from the Quran is it's very clear that through one man sin entered the world, but it doesn't really give us details about can one man deliver us from the problem of sin and death. But the Bible has the answer. Through one man sin and death entered the world, but through another man, whom we all know, delivered us from sin and death, and ultimately will help us resurrect. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you understood the truth about original sin in the Quran.